Ambassador Zeth Thor thought he understood humans. After the Proxima incident, he had witnessed their devastating efficiency when forced into conflict. He had seen how they could dismantle a superior force through sheer tactical brilliance and terrifying determination. But what he hadn't understood was why they tried so desperately to avoid such confrontations in the first place. The revelation came during the Century Crisis negotiations. The hegemony had issued an ultimatum to the outer colonies: submit to direct rule or face pacification. 3 worlds hung in the balance, their combined population exceeding 2 billion souls. The Galactic Coalition had assembled every diplomatic resource available, but after 6 weeks of talks, the hegemony remained unmoved. "They're stalling," growled General Korth, the Zenthari military representative. "Every day we waste in negotiations, they move more ships into position. We should strike now, while we still have tactical advantage." Around the conference table, heads nodded in agreement. The math was simple. Delay favored the enemy. Military action seemed inevitable. Only the human delegation remained silent. Ambassador Chen sat motionless, her hands folded, expression unreadable. Colonel Martinez stared at holographic casualty projections with something that looked like physical pain. Dr. Sarah Park, the human cultural specialist, had grown pale during the tactical briefings. "The human position?" asked the mediator. "The ethereal Lumshar, whose species served as neutral arbitrators." Ambassador Chen finally spoke. Her voice carefully controlled. "We request 48 more hours." The room erupted in protest. General Korth's reptilian crest flared with indignation. 48 hours, Ambassador? The hegemony fleet will be at full strength by then. You're asking us to sacrifice tactical superiority. For what? More futile negotiations? Please, Ambassador Chen said quietly. Just 48 hours. Zeth Thor studied the human delegation's faces and saw something that chilled him. These weren't the expressions of people trying to avoid defeat. These were the faces of beings trying to prevent something far worse than military loss. The request was granted, barely. When the session adjourned, Zeth Thor followed the humans to their private quarters. "Ambassador Chen," he called. "A moment of your time?" She turned, and Zeth Thor was shocked to see tears in her eyes. "Ambassador Zeth Thor, I suppose you want to know what we're really doing." "I confess to curiosity. Your species' military capabilities are well documented. Why delay when victory seems assured?" Dr. Park answered instead, her voice hollow. "Because we know what victory costs." She activated a holographic display that Zeth Thor had never seen before. Detailed projections of the proposed military action. But these weren't tactical assessments. They were casualty estimates, broken down by demographics, psychological impact studies, economic collapse models, refugee displacement, calculations. "We estimate 1.3 million direct military casualties across all forces," Dr. Park continued. "Another 400,000 civilian deaths from infrastructure damage. But those are just the immediate costs." The display shifted, showing long-term projections that made Zeth Thor's stomach turn. 15 million refugees, requiring decades of resettlement. Economic disruption affecting 47 systems, 3 generations of psychological trauma. And that's assuming a quick, clean victory, with minimal escalation. Colonel Martinez spoke for the first time, his voice heavy, with exhaustion. "We've run the simulations 1,000 times. Even our best-case scenario creates more suffering than we're trying to prevent." "But surely," Zeth Thor protested, "the alternative is submission to tyranny." Ambassador Chen activated another display. "This is what we're actually working on." Zeth Thor found himself looking at an intricate web of economic data, trade routes, resource dependencies, and political pressure points. It was far more complex than any military strategy he'd ever seen. We've identified 17 key hegemony systems that depend entirely on trade with neutral worlds, Chen explained. In the past 6 weeks, while everyone thought we were just talking, we've been quietly arranging for those trade agreements to be reconsidered. Dr. Park smiled grimly. Amazing how quickly political positions change when your people start running out of food and medical supplies. We've also been in contact with hegemony opposition groups, Colonel Martinez added, not to arm them, that would just create more violence, but to help them organize peaceful resistance, coordinate labor strikes, arrange for independent media coverage of their movements. The scope of the operation was staggering. While other species had prepared for war, humans had been systematically undermining the hegemony's ability to maintain control without firing a single shot. It's not faster than military action, Ambassador Chen admitted. It's not cleaner or more satisfying, but it works. And it doesn't require us to kill anyone. Zeth Thor stared at the displays in growing understanding. You avoid war, not because you fear defeat, but because you fear victory. We know what we're capable of when we stop trying to be civilized, Dr. Park said quietly. We've seen our own history. We know what happens when humans decide the ends justify the means. The next morning brought news that shocked the coalition. The hegemony had withdrawn its ultimatum. Internal political pressure, economic sanctions, and widespread civil unrest had forced their leadership to negotiate in good faith. The Centauri colonies remained free, without a shot being fired. Later, as delegations prepared to depart, Zeth Thor approached Ambassador Chen one final time. Your species continues to surprise me, he admitted. Most races avoid war because they fear losing. You avoid it because you're afraid of winning. Chen's response would haunt him for cycles to come. Ambassador, when you're very good at something terrible, the greatest victory is never having to prove it. As he watched the human delegation depart, Zeth Thor finally understood why the galaxy's most dangerous species worked so hard to remain peaceful. They weren't avoiding war to protect themselves. They were avoiding it to protect everyone else.